Today we have a crazy story of 40 years of dealing with an entitled parent. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, sleepover party that felt like it would never end. So this was back in 2018. I was in the 5th grade and got invited to my best friend's birthday party. We'll call her Vicky. Me and Vicky are no longer friends currently and probably won't be ever again. Some context is that we had a friend group falling outing where I called out Vicky's homophobia and racism. She said slurs that were very offensive to both the LGBTQ+ community and said slurs that are offensive to Black people, Asian people, Mexican people, and more. I was very excited to go to Vicky's house and she and I were very excited. I'd been friends with Vicky at that point for about 4 to 5 years, so this party was a massive milestone for us. I got to the party hearing karaoke playing from my friend's group's favorite movie. Vicky and another girl were singing the intro to Disney Descendants. I was told by Vicky's mom to drop my bag at the front door. I grabbed my iPad and asked for the Wi-Fi password so I can keep in contact with my family about how things were going. At that time, I was very connected with my parents and family, and when I'm not home, I would text and call my parents goodnight and updates randomly. Well, Vicky's mom, aka New Entitled Mother, said no. And when I explained to Entitled Mother why I needed the password, she harshly told me no again. She said if I want to leave, I need permission from her to use the house phone to contact my parents. I, at the time, didn't know my parents' number, and I needed to have Entitled Mother next to me during that call. Well, 30 to 40 minutes of singing, we got bored and we had to wait for food to arrive still. At that time, I'd been there for at the longest 40 minutes, while the others had been there for 2 whole hours. I still don't know what had been going on for those 2 hours, but I'm glad my mom's aunt, whom I'm no contact with, was pulling and braiding my hair. Cornrows, by the way. Finally, Vicky's dad came home with the food and drinks. Before this, the Entitled Mother told us we're not to have snacks or drinks beforehand. Most of us girls were starving and ran towards the pizza. Most of the girls didn't eat before showing up, and they'd been there since around 3 p.m. Some showed up around 2 p.m. I only made it around 5 p.m. So about 6 p.m. we had cleared out as a group 2 or 3 boxes of pizza. Entitled Mother was mad we ate so much and stormed out of the house. Vicky said she's probably going to pick up her brothers from basketball. Also, before anyone says we ate too much or how insensitive of us to eat all the food that had just been provided for us, there was 5 pizzas there. Also, there was a total of 8 or 10 girls there. Currently, this was just about 7 years ago, so I don't fully remember, but there was a lot of girls at this party. I grabbed my iPad to play some Wi-Fi-less games with the other girls while we waited for the next part of the party. I asked Vicky if she knew the Wi-Fi password, but she actually didn't know it. Vicky's mom claimed that her children are terrible, so they aren't allowed to know the Wi-Fi password and have a 3-hour time limit on their shared iPad. There was baby child locks on the iPad so they can't download and delete games on the iPad. To sum it up, when Vicky's mom entered the house without her sons, so where she'd been I'm not sure, Vicky begged her mom to download at the time a new game called Gotcha Studio. Yes, I had the app at the time, and no, I no longer play or use the app because of the community. It was strange because when Vicky asked her mom for the app, her mom spoke to her in such a sweet tone. Then afterwards was almost yelling at everyone else in a harsh way. After Vicky got the app and played for a total of 5 minutes, her mom requested the iPad back. She gave it back because she trusts her mom. She didn't get the iPad back until almost the end of the sleepover party. After the iPad was taken from Vicky, she instructed us to go to her kitchen and start making her birthday cake. We had to make a giant peppermint brownie cake for Vicky. Even though she was told to go sit down on the couch and stare at the Blink TV, she joined us. Vicky's mom told her to go relax, even though she passed her a certain amount of hours of screen time. This meant she couldn't watch the TV for the rest of the day. Vicky joined us out of boredom. Once her dad came inside from chasing her chickens around for a few eggs, he asked where her brothers were. After finding out her mom had not gotten them, he left to pick them up. After, Vicky's dad came back to see a finished brownie that just needed to be baked. He said, "Oh, I'm glad you used those old candy canes. They've been sitting out since 2016. I was grossed out, but they seemed fine, so I don't know if he was joking or not. Something that kept happening was that I would get a soda, take a few sips, and somebody would move it. I found out the next day that it was both of Vicky's brothers. I had to keep getting multiple sodas because they would move it next to theirs and the other girls' sodas. In total, I opened about 4 or 5 different sodas, not one of them finished, because the boys were drinking from the random sodas. I found that very unsanitary, so I just kept getting a new one. I eventually stopped getting new ones because I was getting tired of opening new sodas just for them to get moved. We found out that there was no more icing, so we had just plain brownies, which I was fine with. When we cut the brownie, I was handed the smallest piece from Vicky's mom. Everybody got a small piece, but I got the smallest due to my misbehavior. What was it that I did wrong, you may ask? I drank 4 to 5 sodas. Due to this, I didn't need any more sugar. At this point, most of the girls left before we could open gifts. I suspect some of them called for their parents to pick them up. I know 1 or 2 girls had their own phone with them. I didn't know my parents' phone number at the time, so I couldn't call no matter how much I wanted to leave. So now, at this point, there's only about 3 or 4 girls at the party. It's currently 7:05 p.m. and we head outside to go play on Vicky's playground and get ready to hit the piñata. We were excited and Vicky asks her mom to be outside and record her and her friends hitting the piñata. Entitled Mother agrees to be outside and record, but says she's going to take a quick shower first and then she'll be outside. Well, we waited until almost 9 at night outside for her to return. Entitled Mother finally comes back when the sky's dark outside. It wasn't too dark, but just dark enough for you to question why you're outside playing still, instead of inside getting ready for dinner and then bed. We hit the piñata and grabbed candy. Well, Entitled Mother didn't like that we all got huge bagfuls and her son's bags aren't as big. Entitled Mother's sons had big bags full of candy, just not as much as some of us had. So Entitled Mother made us give 2 big handfuls of our candies to her boys. The boys were in 3rd grade and 2nd grade. They both were happy with what they got and didn't care if they got more or not. We were unhappy, but gave them our candies. We went inside to open presents, but Entitled Mother insisted we only open 3 presents. Then we go see what her grandparents got her. Vicky opened the presents of the remaining girls' items. Then the 2 girls left because their parents came to pick them up. That left me and Andrea. She's not too important to the story, but it would be nice to give her a name. So now was the time for the final gift for the night. Vicky, Andrea, and Vicky's dad and brother got into the van with me, and we drove 15 to 20 minutes out of town. I asked before leaving if they could call my parents and tell them where I'm going, but I was told no. Nobody in the car other than Vicky's dad knew where we were going. Something happened that made me super uncomfortable was that in the car, I was given a flashlight, because it would be dark by the time we got where we were going. I turned on the flashlight by accident. Thankfully, it wasn't pointed at any mirrors. When it went off, it hit the ceiling of the fan. It was obvious what happened, and Vicky's dad told me not to do it again, which is a reasonable request. He then said in a joking voice, "Don't do it again because you'll blind the driver and we'll crash." Then proceeded to swerve the car, almost crashing. He did this repeatedly for a solid 5 minutes. It was scary mainly because he drove on the wrong side of the road and almost crashed into the oncoming cars and parked cars. He stopped, thankfully, and we all moved on like it didn't happen. I was mainly shaken up the most. As we drove, I realized nobody knew where we were going. It wasn't until we got close to the location did Vicky and her brothers knew where we were going. I was getting nervous though. I was in the middle of nowhere pretty much. We were outside some fruit farm, which I won't name which fruit because it'll give away too much information. We pulled up and it was dark outside. I was actually scared, and so was Andrea, which I later found out that Andrea had strict parents, and she was told not to leave the house no matter what. She left the house because it would be awkward if she stayed back and would be left basically by herself. Entitled Mother decided that she wasn't going to go because it would be boring. Entitled Mother's children begged her to join us, and I was glad she decided to stay home and do work. Off topic, Vicky had a puppy, which she later on told me they locked it inside a shelf closet. A tiny closet with shelves almost touching the ground. The closet could support a thin, small child if you tried to put somebody in there. Keep in mind that the dog had been in that closet the whole time and was locked in there for an almost full 24 hours. Back to the main story. We stayed out there for about 30 minutes just to find nothing was out there but an old treehouse, which was about to collapse. The gift was that Vicky's grandparents paid to get a new treehouse for her, and she gets to pick out where the new treehouse will go. She picked the middle of the fruit farm and asked if we could drive farther out. Thankfully, her dad said no. I also later on found out we were right in the area where commonly tarantulas, rattlesnakes, and other possible dangerous animals tend to lurk. We finally get back and watch The Greatest Showman, which was Vicky's favorite movie at the time. We were given all small bowls of popcorn, and when I tried to get more like Andrea did, I was told no harshly and to save some for everyone else. Everybody else had gotten about 2 or more bowls of popcorn. I was so ready to go home at that point, but had no way to tell my parents to pick me up. The movie ended and we were told to go to bed. When I ran downstairs to bring my bag of clothes upstairs and see if I could get Wi-Fi or guess the Wi-Fi password to tell my parents to pick me up, Entitled Mother was at the top of the stairs waiting for me. She told me to hand over my iPad and I could get it back in the morning. So I handed it over. I was stuck there for the rest of the night. I was too scared to ask Entitled Mother if I could call my parents to leave or stand up against her, so I went to Vicky's room to sleep. By morning, everyone was very distant towards me because I stayed the night. I got up first, made my bed, and got dressed because I just wanted to leave. Me, Andrea, and Vicky headed downstairs once we heard Entitled Mother wake up. The rule was don't leave your room for breakfast or to be downstairs in the morning until Entitled Mother is downstairs. Andrea stayed the night before in the past and even warned me, don't leave the room to use the bathroom unless I really have to, otherwise I will get in trouble. We head downstairs, open the rest of the presents, and then we had breakfast. We all got 1 pancake only. Vicky's brothers got 2 pancakes, but they were so small it was basically a total of 1. At this point it was almost 12, so I thought it would be fun to have a soda because it was close to the afternoon. When Andrea saw that I got a soda, she also got one. Once we opened the soda, Entitled Mother started yelling at us. She wasn't in the same room, but her yell was the kind that parents do when you break a window. She yelled, "Who the heck opened a soda?" She stomped in and snatched our sodas. Andrea looked genuinely scared and said, "You didn't ask if we could have soda?" I didn't think it was a problem before. We got scolded by Entitled Mother and she told us both, "We can have water and milk. We need permission for soda and juice." I can understand soda needs a request, but apple juice and orange juice needs permission? I thought it was ridiculous, but I didn't argue because I was terrified. We got yelled at and she left to sit in the dining room. The dining room is next to the kitchen, but there's a wall that makes it hard for us to see her. She spent most of the party in the dining room. My dad called to tell Entitled Mother he's on his way, thankfully. Entitled Mother was talking to Andrea about how Andrea's mom made a joke about how she could live there since she's over so often. I wanted her to think I had an amazing time, so I tried to chime in saying I had a great time, and I would love to stay here sometime in the future again. Entitled Mother side-eyed me and said, "I wasn't talking to you," then rolled her eyes at me. I wanted to leave at that moment. Thankfully, my dad showed up a few minutes later, and before I left, Entitled Mother tried to keep my iPad. I asked for it back while my dad was there, and Entitled Mother went and got it, but handed the iPad to my dad and not me. She then said to my dad, "Your daughter drank 5 sodas and ate 3 slices of pizza." My dad wanted to leave because he was getting a weird vibe from Entitled Mother. Me and my dad hurried out, and he handed me back my iPad, but scolded me for drinking so much soda. It was the worst birthday party I've ever been to. I'm so glad that I grew a backbone finally at the age of 17, therefore this would have never happened again, let alone I have a phone that has wireless reception so I can get out of these crazy situations. Overall, I'm glad I'm no longer in contact with that crazy family. So honestly, I hear this story and I just feel bad for the kid because clearly the kid wants to have some kind of awesome birthday party. I almost wonder if the kid, considering the way their parents acted, was embarrassed but probably wouldn't want to admit to it. Although, considering it probably is the normal behavior for them to experience and the fact that they went along with it, didn't see a problem with it, and they had that whole treehouse saga where they were totally on board, maybe they were oblivious to how weird their parents were acting. Realistic Noise 2 wrote, "Since it's been a year later, I know that you wouldn't have any control, but if you've seen her outside of school events or anything where you've had the opportunity to say something to her, or is she just too crazy where even if you said hi to the woman, she would freak out at you?" Reason why I ask is because if Vicky did eventually get out, I wonder how her mental state is, because she sounds like a extreme control freak and anybody that doesn't abide by her rules at all times, even if you're not her kid, would equal punishment for anyone in the vicinity. I just hope that you never ever have to even look at her again, but I would say good luck. Opie responded saying, "So this took place in 2018 when me and Vicky were 5th graders. We're now about to be seniors and I left the district, but we both live in the same town, so I rarely see her. but the times I have seen her, Vicky seems more distant from everybody, including her family. I have to get info from friends. So far, she's got her license and a job, and she's planning on leaving home at the age of 18, so she can't be stopped, honestly. The only member of her family that I interact with is her dad, because even though me and Vicky aren't on talking terms, her dad still says hi. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy these stories of crazy entitled parents, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, My Mother Feels Entitled to My Child. I have a 10-month-old baby I'm pretty sure my mom is using as her coping mechanism. About a year before I got pregnant, my grandma died from COVID. We were devastated, but the moment I got pregnant, it was like her eyes lit up. It started off small. Like, when I was pregnant, we got into an argument over me naming my baby something different than what she wanted. She wanted me to name my baby after my grandma because I just feel like she sent her down to me. She has an entire other side of the family, and whenever I send her to spend time with them, she calls my phone and blows me up, asking, "Why is she over there? How long? I need their number so I can call them." She completely disregards I'm her parent. Last night we got into an argument because it's my grandma's birthday today and we were going to visit family. Typically the baby will go, but her family asked to spend some time with her this week, so I sent her over. I told my mom it was just me going, and she completely went off on me, talking about how I know it's my grandma's birthday coming up and I know the baby makes her feel better, so why would I send her anyways? She started talking to me crazy and she yelled at me saying that I was going to pick her up and that she was going. I usually would have given in, but I finally put my foot down. I explained to her that I don't think it's a big deal if she didn't go. She's a baby, she doesn't know my grandmother. I told her I was tired of her using my baby as a crutch instead of actually getting better. I told her the only reason you want her there is so she can be your teddy bear. I told her my child isn't a tool for when she misses my grandma. I don't know, part of me feels like I shouldn't have said it, part of me feels guilty. But I don't think I can keep living like this. She's so suffocating. Honestly, I think OP kind of hit the nail on the head here. There really is kind of an unhealthy attachment and association with that baby, and the fact that anything even remotely grandma related has to have the baby there, I just think it's good OP breaks that cycle and kind of forces them to try to move past that. Retsuko wrote, "Nope, nope, nope. Your baby is not your mother's coping mechanism. Good on you for putting your foot down. If you were to let it keep happening as your baby gets older, they would be more susceptible to your mom manipulating them and guilting them when they're not with her. Set that hard line now. Your mom needs therapy. A person cannot be her coping mechanism." OP responded saying, "My mom is extremely emotionally manipulative. She's been like that my whole life even after I became an adult. It got worse when I got into a relationship and my fiance encourages me to live life, etc." This next story is, can't bother my parents about needs, but they can scream at me about theirs. I'm not allowed to bug either of my parents ever about something I need or that they're supposed to or said they would do, but they're allowed to scream and yell at me every time I don't do something within 5 minutes or within the day. Then they act like they do everything for me and that I always ask for so much from them. This happens so many times. I don't know why I didn't expect it to happen this time. This time around, I'd been saving to improve my cat's quality of life. He never drinks from his water bowl, only the dog's massive bowls. And now, more than ever in this heat, it's imperative I make sure he stays hydrated. I wanted to get him an automatic feeder and a little kitty water fountain. Not only would they be better tailored to his needs than the dinky plastic one I've been stuck with since I got him, but they would be easier on me. I'm disabled physically and mentally and chronically ill. I struggle to get a job or make much money on a reliable basis, so I decided to ask my mom if she'd help me out with getting my cat a new food bowl, water bowl, and if she wanted, a new scratching post since his current one is falling apart. And I don't want him to hurt himself with it. I was elated when she said yes to all three, with her even commenting that they were rather affordable and not expensive. I suddenly have all that I was saving for off my back, or so I thought. After a while, about a day or so, I ask her if she ordered them. She tells me she forgot or was busy. I think, no problem, we've all been there. A couple more days pass by, I ask again. She huffs and says she's busy. I back off. This continues with her getting increasingly more rude, snappy, and aggressive. I was even courteous enough to only ask every couple days and only when I was sure they weren't busy. For example, on their break or laying around doing nothing but playing games and watching videos. Tonight, I got fed up. I politely and calmly asked my mother if she had done what she said she would. She snaps that she hasn't. I ask if she will. She goes silent. I ask if she understands. She claims, "There's nothing to understand." I restate my concern. I ask if she'll do what she said she will. She says, "Maybe." I tell her she needs to start keeping her word and ask if it'll take another 3 weeks. Indignantly, she snaps that maybe she will. I put my foot down and firmly remind her of what she said she would do. Suddenly, my dad screams from the other room for me to shut up, that it's her money and she can do whatever she wants with it. I know he heard the entire conversation, but I shouted a reminder that my mother said she would do this, and I've been waiting 3 weeks. The argument ends in me being further ignored, but I remind them I will be asking them again. I will not relent. I am sick and tired of their behavior. This is just one of the thousands of things they do, and why I hate that they're my legal guardians. Note, I am an adult, 18 plus years of age. I'm fed up of staying quiet and hiding too. Y'all can expect much, much more from me soon. I don't think there's any problem with OP kind of pressing them on things that they promised to do. Needless to say though, I think OP should expect they're not actually going to follow through, be able to pivot, and kind of start just preparing to look after themselves. Moody5583 wrote, "Sadly, you may be at their whim for a few more years, till you reach 21. I hope you're on some kind of government assistance as a form of income so you'd be able to get into an apartment. I recommend something like an HUD housing, one for people with disabilities or elderly, although even after you turn 21, you may still be subject to their whims through their control over your apartment. And yes, that is because of your disabilities, sadly. And truthfully, depending on what your mental disability is, would also depend on how long until you can be legally classified as an independent adult. If autism, the chances of being classified as an independent adult may never happen depending on the severity." OP responded saying, "I'm on Medicaid, but I'm not on disability yet, if I understand you correctly. I'm honestly unsure what the process to get on it is. It definitely doesn't help that we just moved to a new house in February. I am autistic, but I wouldn't say that I'm rather severe, but it does make a big impact on my life. At the moment, it's a 100% yes that I can't live on my own without a caretaker or guardian. My one saving grace is that the guardianship is partial, unlike something more akin to power of attorney." Our next story is advice on dealing with mother after 40 years. I feel like as a 40 plus something adult that I should know how to handle this, but this has been ongoing for so long. Every time I feel like I know what to do, I change my mind again. Let me start by saying that I was raised in a home where parents fought from morning to night, often putting us in the middle of their fights. It was mentally abusive. One small example, Mom would pretend to have a heart attack and fall to the floor when I was in grade school because of how my dad treated her, and when we would go to call 911, she would be fine. There are too many stories to tell. Her running away from my dad and going away for the night, and me and my brother would be bawling our eyes out worried about divorce and her leaving us. I remember vividly going out with my friends to take my mind off of it and being told that she couldn't believe I could do that. I must not have cared or loved her. This continued on until college when I would obsess over her health and making sure she was okay, religiously calling from college to make sure. I was diagnosed with OCD and severe anxiety as a young teen. Had multiple episodes over the years that completely debilitated me. Somehow I'm a functioning adult, own a business, went to law school, and have children. When I graduated law school, I found out my mom had been cheating online on my father. I told her I would tell dad if she didn't. She ended up leaving my dad and leaving the state to go live with this guy. Married now for about 15 years. My dad, my brother, and I had no idea she was leaving. She said she was going on vacation and never came back. I was pregnant with my first at the time. I had kids at a young age because she was older and I wanted her to be around for them. I was left to clean out the house they owned, my childhood home, for my dad to sell, and pretty much get my dad through this and my brother, who was 22 at the time and living at home. Wait, we are just getting started. At 34, I found out that my mother was not my biological mother, and that I was carried by a surrogate. Ends up she couldn't have any more children, and my dad and her really wanted children. That's fine, but I didn't know this until 6 years ago. I forgave again. When she was younger and around, back and forth to different states, she would play a role in mine and her grandkids' lives. She helped me through so many depressive episodes with round-the-clock care. She loved me, I know this, and we had an amazing relationship where we would talk daily for 15 plus years despite all the trauma. But now it's almost like all she cares about is herself. She will not come to see me or kids, 45 minutes away, demands we see her if we want to see her. Let's not forget I have 4 kids, all very busy. She is constantly making up stories saying she's sick when we have plans that don't involve her house. Every time we talk or kids talk on the phone, she says, "When are you visiting? I want to see the kids." I know she cares. I'm just so angry and hurt. I get it. She's old, over 80, and her memory is going. I'm trying to be mindful of this, and I feel horrible when I get angry, but I think it's just accumulating tons of trauma and anger. So, ends to say, I'm hurt. I'm frustrated and don't know how to handle her moving forward. I want to be a different type of parent, and I'm just fed up. Oh, and my dad, he's amazing. I thought he was the problem my whole childhood. I'm sure he played a part, but now I know the real problem. I mean, I'm definitely no expert, but do you guys think maybe a way to go about this is kind of just the classic backbone kind of way? Whereas if something she's saying such as, "When are you visiting? I want to see the kids," bothers you that much that you need to be able to say to them, "Well, I want you to try to visit me more. It's not so simple for me to travel with 4 kids like that." You know, just being able to find your voice and being very open, honest, and communicative, even if there's some kind of like negative backlash or real color that's going to be shown from the parent in response to this kind of stuff. If anybody else has any other thoughts, I'd like to know what you guys think. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy entitled parent story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.